listening to The Terrific Teacherpreneur, a podcast for teachers looking to grow a successful online business. Your host, Alex, was able to transform her Teachers Pay Teachers store from a small side hustle into a profitable full-time business. She now helps other teachers do the same. Listen along for actionable tips and helpful wisdom about business and marketing as a teacherpreneur. Here's your host, Alex.
Hello and welcome to the Terrific Teacherpreneur podcast. In this episode, we're going to be diving into email marketing now. I did a recent episode where I talked about lead magnets. Go ahead and check that out. I've done loads of episodes in the past about email marketing as well. So, if you're really in the thick of discovering email marketing this year, there's a bunch of episodes I definitely recommend checking out. I'll put a few links in the show notes. It can be a really overwhelming process, but maybe your goal this year is I want to start my email list, or I want to get back into email marketing or make more money from my list, etc., etc. Either way, I have shared a lot of tips in the past, so check those out. But today, I want to talk about the actual act of emailing. So not so much about growing your list or lead magnets or making more money from your list, but just the day-to-day, the week-to-week, the month-to-month of like the actual content you're sending your list. That's going to be the topic of today. And I've got a few questions that people have submitted in the Facebook group, The Terrific Teacherpreneur, and I'm going to try and answer those the best I can. But I will start off by saying I did get a bunch of other questions. So people ask things like, how do I grow my email list? Like, what's the best way to promote lead magnets? What do you do if your emails aren't converting to sales? Like, how do you make more money and all that? And I just, email is such a huge topic. I just cannot fit literally everything into a podcast episode. It's actually kind of why I created my email course, because there's so much to it. There's so many tutorials you need. There's so many like how-tos kind of thing with email. Like when you're starting, just literally the idea of starting an email list is so complicated compared to just, creating an Instagram account or whatever. And so, yeah, that was another thing. People submitted questions. They were asking stuff like, what is involved in getting started? What is the process? Like, how do you choose your email marketing platform? Like, there's so many questions for that as well. It's just, from start to finish of email, it feels like there's so many things you want to Google, whether it's how to set it up or how to get more people on your list or how to get the emails to actually convert to sales. Like, there's just so much to it. It can be really overwhelming, and it can feel like when you're just trying to do it on your own, just constantly Googling, you just get really frustrated. So that's kind of why I wanted to put it all in one place. So I will put a link in the show notes if you want to check out Terrific Email. It's my email marketing course for TPT sellers, and it covers literally everything you need to know. So if 2025 is your year where you're like, I'm going to start my email list this year, or I'm going to be, putting email at the top of my priorities, then go ahead and check it out. I think you'll really like it. But anyway, so today is just focusing purely on the actual content of emails. And so here are some of the questions I got, okay? I got people asking me about like what to send. They kind of said things like go-to ideas for email marketing when you're feeling stuck. And then someone else said, what to write in an email to buyers? Just literally, what am I supposed to write? And then someone else did a kind of more detailed sort of one where they said, I'd love to hear what your process is when planning and writing emails. I've had an email list for a couple of years, but only started being more consistent a few months ago, and I really struggle trying to write and schedule them once a month, but I dread it. And the process has become really lengthy. I just don't have a game plan or a ton of direction. So any advice would be helpful. Like tips to write the emails quickly as well would be awesome. So this is what I have to say. Okay, so first up, we have the option of long form content. If you have something like a blog, a podcast or YouTube channel, that kind of thing. If you actually don't have any of those forms of long form content, feel free to skip the next, couple of minutes of my talking if you want. But if you have long form content, this will dictate the content of some of your emails. So you might talk about, you might tell a funny story about, your first disastrous attempt at math centers, like trying to put them in your classroom. And then you sort of segue into a blog post you have that's how to implement math centers. And you can kind of share a few tips from the blog post, or you can summarize a blog post, or you can just purely kind of link to it. And so if you are consistently creating long form content, once a week or a couple of times a month or every now and then, even just a few a quarter, you can share that newest content. And so you've kind of got, I'll just share my latest blog post. And remember that unless you're brand new and you've only ever written one blog post, assuming you've got like a catalog of content, so old YouTube videos, old podcast episodes, a bunch of old blog posts, you don't always have to be serving something new. You can go back and grab something that you wrote a few months back, a few years back, whatever, as long as it's, okay, check that it's, not really terrible content. your buyers probably have never seen it. So don't be shy about that. Don't feel like you have to constantly write new blog posts in order to serve your email list. Like, you can totally send old content. You can, and you should definitely do that. Obviously, if you're a bit stuck for new content, that's where the repurposing would come from. Just like tell yourself, my subscribers have not seen this old content. Like, I do not need to worry about it being new. But the other option, of course, is to be inspired by your email list, and that might motivate you to get back into, say, blogging and putting more effort into that. Because then you're doing two things at once. You're getting your blog going again, kind of bringing that back to life, and you're going to be serving your email list. So it's like it serves two purposes, and sometimes that can be really motivational. If you have no long form content, you don't have a blog or a website or whatever, that's fine. You don't have to have that stuff in order to have an email list. But your job is a tiny bit trickier because you can't just, pull old content and pull your latest blog post and use that for, content in your email. But you can share value in a different way, because that's what it's all about, is sharing value and helping your audience. So you don't want to just be like sending them freebies every 5 seconds, and you don't want to be overly salesy with always shoving resources down their throat. So that middle ground is, providing value and helping them if you can. That's going to help you with the building relationships too, which is that know, like, trust factor. So you could basically be writing little emails that are kind of what you would write if you had long form content. So imagining that you actually did have a blog or a YouTube channel or a podcast, like, what are the kind of tips that you would give, and what probably would you be doing for those places? Helpful tips, tricks, strategies, hacks, things that, your buyers would probably love, depending on whatever your niche is. Next tip that I want to share is about knowing your audience. I think that really, really helps when it comes to crafting emails, because, the tips I just shared about, share a hack or a strategy or tips to share value and help your buyers. Well, that's easy to say if you know your buyers. If you don't really know what kind of tips and hacks and strategies they want, then you're just going to feel just as stuck, even before I give you that helpful piece of advice. So you do have to know your audience. So that's like, knowing your niche and your ideal customer avatar and what's relevant to them. I would sit down and take that time to figure that out, because if that could be like the crux of the issue, is if you don't really know what people want, then you're going to have no idea what to write. So in summary, those two big things, I think, for, what to write in your weekly emails. Use your long form content, whether it's new content or you're repurposing your old stuff. And if you don't have long form content, you kind of write basically emails imagining that you do have long form content. Either way, it's like, tips, hacks, strategies, things that your buyers would find useful. And the little task for you, if that still is difficult, is you need to kind of go back to basics and figure out what people actually want. The people that are your ideal buyer, they're on your email list, or the people that would buy from your store. What are they struggling with? What problems do they have? How are your resources the solution? What are they struggling to teach? What are their students struggling with? Like, the word struggle here is really key, because there's something that they've got going on. They don't know how to fix it. And that's where you come in. Like I said, with the math centers example, they're like a brand new teacher. They've never done math centers before. They feel overwhelmed. I don't even know how to set this up. I don't know how to navigate the managing of the behaviors and the classroom management. I don't know how to organize the resources. What kind of things should my students be doing? Like, they probably have a million questions about just that one thing. And if that's like your jam, if your whole niche is like math, but specifically hands-on centers and stuff, there's so much information you could be sharing with them. And if you really break that down and sat down and list it out, like brainstorm things. Okay, here are the types of questions they have. You could probably come up with a million blog post ideas, a million ideas for emails every week that addresses a different part of that struggle. You know what I mean? This is how to set up the centers. This is, what you would do for each center. This is how to manage the transitions and help your students with their behavior, and like all these different things. You could kind of have a different topic every week. But you need to start off with knowing what that buyer struggle is, and then sitting there and figuring out all the different problems they have. You can brainstorm and like brain dump ideas and give yourself lots of ideas. Obviously, brainstorming is great, but there's like a limit to that. Teacher Facebook groups are such an amazing source of information. If you're in a bunch of those, you just join them as a lurker for your niche, kindergarten math teachers, kindergarten teachers, whatever, whatever kind of suits your niche. Teachers are in there all the time asking questions. They're like, how do I do this? What are you guys doing for this? I'm really struggling with this. And they literally tell you what their problems are. There's a lot of great information in there. And then Facebook groups aside, if you have your own other marketing platforms, if you've got an Instagram or a TikTok or a Facebook group of your own or whatever, you can ask them, like ask buyers, ask teachers, like, what are you struggling with? What's the biggest problem you have in this area? And even if you've already got an email list, like with a decent amount of people on it, you can actually email them and like send them like a little Google form, or just get them to click a button and answer a question, or get them to reply to you, bribe them like with a gift card or something if you need to. But like, hey, what are you struggling with? What do you want tips on? Because asking is honestly one of the quickest ways to get a billion ideas of what you could do. I guess my little summary I want to say here is, for whatever niche you're in, whatever is your area of expertise, there is so much that people need help with. There is so much that other teachers and buyers are struggling with. You may know it all. You may be really experienced, so it doesn't really occur to you. But these like, newer teachers, or teachers that are just really struggling in that area, probably have a million questions, things they really, really need help with. I guarantee you, there is so much content out there that you could be writing in your weekly emails. You have just got to find it though. And so I think asking people, or like I said, you're doing your own little brainstorming is definitely a good place to start. And then when you've got a million ideas, oh wow, there's all these things I could write about. Sitting there and writing a weekly email suddenly becomes effortless, because you're like, okay, I know this week I'm talking about implementing math centers. I've got so many ideas I want to share. Here's the first tip, blah, blah, blah. And you just dive straight into it. It feels more effortless when you don't have that roadblock of, well, I don't know what to write about. Well, now you do. Now you know exactly what your buyers want to read about. Hoping that little spiel has helped with those questions of like what to write, sending emails each week, go to ideas when you're feeling stuck, tips for staying consistent, because it's easier to be consistent when you know your buyers really well and you have all these ideas. Hoping that's going to help. And yeah, the big one where someone said, I just dread it. And I think that frustration, that dread, that kind of, I don't know what to do, or I'm putting it off, whatever, is because you just don't have those ideas. You're not inundated with ideas. When you have a big long list of things that buyers want to read about, opening up an email and typing it suddenly becomes quite effortless, because it's just the act of typing it. You've already got that hard bit over with. So yeah, I'm hoping that helps. Of course, long form content isn't the only thing that you will send your email list. There are other things too. And like I mentioned, briefly, I said you don't want to go too crazy with this, but of course you are going to probably send them free and paid resources. And so that's something that gets scattered in there as well. Maybe once a month you send them a freebie, or even less than that if you want, that's fine. And maybe every other week you're sending them a paid resource, you're linking to something. I mean, it's totally up to you on the frequency here. But yeah, throughout the month, of course, you can send free and paid resource links talking about your actual resources. But I think it's a bad habit to get into every week sending a freebie, or every week sending a paid resource. I think buyers tend to feel like, what am I really getting out of this? If it's just constantly being, if it's too salesy and you're just shoving resources in their face all the time, they might not enjoy that. And of course, as much as they would love freebies, it trains them to never really buy from you. Because then when you do send a product to them that is paid, well, why would I ever pay for this? I know she's just going to send a million freebies next week. So, you don't want to go too extreme with either of those things. You can and you should send free and paid resources, but it should be interspersed within emails and throughout the year with value-based emails. I think that's really, really key here. And I do talk about that in Terrific Email. So like I have a whole module 4, how to write emails. And that kind of covers the start of how you write the emails to engage people and getting them to like open your emails and actually read them, subject lines and things like that. And I do talk about, writing what to write in your emails, the long form content stuff, value-based email ideas. And then I've got like how often you should email, like when should you email? How do you save time when you're writing emails? All that kind of stuff. Like I do kind of cover everything in a bit more detail. So if you want to learn more, that would be a great place. But yeah, I think the final question someone said was, how to plan emails ahead of time. And I think that's kind of answered by what I said. I think if you have this big, huge list of ideas, like it's a great place to be like, I have so much I could write about. There's so many things my buyers are struggling with. I know they're struggling with this stuff and I'm really knowledgeable in this area. And you have so many ideas like that. Then when it comes to planning ahead of time, it's really just slotting it into weeks. This month we could have a theme of talking about this, and then next month my theme could be this, and I'll just like put these ideas into that week, and you're just kind of dragging it around the place, you know what I mean, on your computer. Like you could create some kind of document, you could have a plan or whatever, and you could say, like I've got literally like 20 ideas here, I'm gonna spread them out over a couple of months and do all these different topics and stuff, and then you just get to choose where it goes. So how to plan becomes a lot easier when you have ideas. So the first step is doing that, of course. And of course, when it comes to planning emails, there are other things to factor in. You've got site-wide sales, seasons and holidays and things that come up. It's like, it's Valentine's Day or Christmas or whatever. If things are coming up, then you might want to factor those things in. But sometimes it's nice to keep it evergreen and just know that it doesn't matter what day or week it is, you can send that email because it suits everyone and everything and it's not too specific. If you fixate too much on things being seasonal, then you kind of end up feeling overwhelmed. Oh my goodness, wait, St. Patrick's Day is almost upon me. I haven't planned my St. Patrick's Day email and you get really overwhelmed. So sometimes it's nice to stick to evergreen. I think it can be a bit less stressful. I did get a bunch of other questions, people saying things about how long should emails be? I would be here all day if I had to answer every single one. So I have to say, definitely check out Terrific Email. They were like wanting to know about getting started as well. And that's just such an in-depth thing. I wouldn't even know where to begin. People did ask about things like, one person did say, what's your favorite email platform? And I will just say Flowdesk is awesome. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to that. I'm yet to find another platform that's enticing me in terms of like affordability or anything. It's just, I think the pricing is just really great. So check that out. You can join the first month for free and use someone's affiliate link. It saves you money. I think that's still true. So if you use my link, it saves you 50% off on your first year. I think that's still true. So, it's always good to do that. But yeah, you can take the time having a little Google if you want. But I've done a lot of research and a lot of email service providers are really pricey. Becomes really expensive. So I do love Flowdesk. We'll recommend that because someone else had actually asked, how much sort of money do I need to spend to get started? With Flowdesk, that first month is free. And there's some other platforms that have a free limit. You can have 1,000 subscribers before you get charged, that kind of thing. So it can start off as free. But, I would expect that you do eventually have to pay money when it comes to email marketing because it's not like just starting a TikTok account. It's not a 100% free marketing platform. And I know that can be kind of scary because you don't just get to put in nothing but your time. You have got to invest money, but it's worth it because out of every single marketing platform, it's by far got the best ROI, like return on investment. Google it if you want to. The statistics don't lie. Like marketing wise, it's the best type of marketing. So worth it, I think. But, be mindful of, obviously of your finances. I think email marketing is quite an advanced topic. I don't recommend starting it when you're like in your first few months of TPT. And if you literally can't afford the cost of your email service provider, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah. Okay, I really hope that has helped. Just giving you a few ideas. My big takeaway for you is this. You will have a much easier time, not just with email marketing, but with every type of marketing, whether it's making your next Instagram video or writing another blog post or whatever. It doesn't matter what kind of marketing platform it is, but creating content either is easy and effortless or really, really difficult, totally depending on this. And I think you will have much easier time if you know your audience, if you just like through and through know exactly who your ideal customer avatar is, exactly that buyer that's buying from your TPT, who they are, grade they teach, what subjects they teach, what they're looking for, what they're struggling with. If you know them really well and you know their struggles, maybe because that was you, a few years ago, it's going to help you so much because then creating content is just like this effortless thing of, I'm just going to basically answer the question that you have. It's only hard if you don't know what the question is. You've no idea what your buyers want to know, what they're struggling with. So I guess, that's a little good way of looking at it is like question answer. Creating content is a lot of the time essentially answering. Yes, your kind of job is to go, hey, here's what I think you should do, or here's a resource that's going to help you. Here's my answer to your problem. Here's my answer to your question. Here's my solution to your problem, all that. That's your kind of job, but you will always be stuck if you don't know what the question is. So that's my little takeaway for you with this episode. Sitting down and really knowing what your buyer wants or doing the research to learn what they want, because then everything becomes so much easier. And guess what? This also applies to your store, because when you know your buyers really well, oh my goodness, they're struggling so much with math centers, then you can create resources that fill that need. You're going to create resources that your buyers actually want. Many of us, we've all been guilty of this, create a resource on TPT because we just think it would be fun to create, or because we saw someone else making it, or because, I don't know, maybe you just get like an idea and you're like, oh, that would be fun. And then it's not something a buyer ever really wanted, and then it doesn't sell, and you're like, oh, what a bummer. But it's like, if you can fill a need and you know that resource you're currently working on is something a buyer really, really needs or really, really wants, it's going to sell so much better. So this advice is so applicable to everything in your business. Right? I will wrap this up now. But like I said, check out the show notes. I'm going to throw a bunch of links in there to previous email marketing episodes. I will put a link to Flowdesk. Definitely grab that affiliate link if you want to save money when you're joining up. and a link to Terrific Email, my course that covers literally everything you need to know, because your time is precious. So don't sit there spending hours upon hours, days upon days, weeks upon weeks, Googling and watching all these YouTube videos and getting all this conflicting information and then just feeling really frustrated. Just have all the answers in one place, especially because it's TPT specific. There's a couple of email courses out there by like general people in marketing, but there's nothing that's applicable to you. And they're talking about, hairdressing businesses, whatever. That's just not applicable to you. All my examples are about TPT sellers, like this episode. I'm talking about math centers, like everything's specific to TPT. So definitely good for you if you're a seller. I'll put that link in there. And I will also put a link. There's a little freebie I have I created. It's about email marketing terminology. So, all those words, like buzzwords, like what is a lead magnet? What is an opt-in? What's the difference? Like all that kind of stuff. Email marketing comes with so many buzzwords. There's like literally this freebie has like pages of them. And it's like all these definitions. So if you're getting confused by what these words mean, what's a segment? What's this? You know what I mean? What's a tag? It's all there for you. So I'll put a link to that freebie as well, the email market terminology freebie, just to get you started. And then at least you know some of the basics about the email marketing words. But anyway, I hope this has helped and I hope that you have a terrific day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Terrific Teacherpreneur. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Come back for more actionable tips and helpful wisdom in the next episode with your host, Alex. Until then.